Okay, we're assembling the wiring harness for the oil pressure gauge, and these wires have to be soldered together to get full connectivity. Now the gauge itself only uses about maximum 0.3 volts, so we don't need 10 gauge wire, you know, for this. We're just using small wire. The wire on here, this is like, the harness is made of very small, very fine, thin electronics, like wiring that you would see in a radio circuitry board, you know, with transistors. So yeah, 0.3 volts. So what I have here is I took this fuse. This has a 0.3 volt fuse in it. This is off of a radio, one of my old stereos from years ago, and I've attached that. I soldered it onto the hot wire, so we're doing the hot lead first, and now I'm gonna solder in some 18 gauge wire, which is the smallest that I could get at the auto parts store. That should work okay. Not sure how much resistance there's going to be in this 18 gauge wire, but you know, it's not going to hurt anything. It's going to be fused anyway. So right now the iron's hot. I've crossed the two wires together in an X formation, and I twisted them together in the opposite ends. I twisted them in an opposite direction, each end, forming a nice tight twist bond. Now we're going to solder. You have to heat the wire up, so I just do it like this. You know, I just put the hot iron right on top of the wire, and then feed the solder right into it like you're welding a weld joint. And this is electronic solder. This is for electronics. You want to make sure that you get the right kind of solder, the real thin stuff. That's for electronics. Let's see if it's hot. Yeah, it's hot. We're hot. Here we go. Just keep feeding it in there and it'll melt. It'll melt in there just fine. And there it is. All done. There we go. Melted all the way around it. Now the next wire I'm going to do is the green neutral wire, I believe is what it is, and that goes to the isn't green for neutral? Thought it was. Anyway, it's going to the sending unit. So we'll just cut off a piece here. And I usually just use scissors. Just kind of, oops. I just kind of spin the scissor blade, squeeze a little bit, spin the scissors around, and small wire is pretty easy. All right, there we go. Twist the wire there, and the wire just form an X like that, and just twist it around real good. Opposite directions. That'll work. Okay. Oh, uh-oh. Looks like that'll be okay. Just melted the insulation a little bit. And repeat, heat the wire up. And I'm going to warm it up a little bit more. Got that. Do the other side. And there it is. Let's see how that turned out. Oh yeah. Yeah, that penetrated real good. Okay. Now we got one more, which is the negative black. Cut one more piece. Now I'll make it a little bit longer terminal this time. That last one was a little short. You want to give yourself enough wire to twist. And wrap around like you're wolving the wire together, you know, like you're making a carpet or something. You want a real tight wolve. There we go. Okay. Heat it up. Alright, where's my solder at? What happened to the solder? I lost it. Uh-oh. I lost the solder. Okay, so I have the harness hooked up, running inside the cab, going through the same plugged hole. And I labeled all the wires. You can see with the blue tape. I just stick some painter's tape, fold it over the wire, and I use a black marker, and I just write hot, you know, on the red one, and ground for the black, and neutral for green. And because I had to wrap up, you know, the wiring where it was soldered together, harness into the extension wires. And so all my wires are laying out in the engine compartment now. and I'm going to proceed to hook them up to the rightful connection point. So here we go. So the oil pressure gauge is working. It is hooked up, connected. Now when the engine's cold, and then I start the engine up cold, the reading on the gauge is about 78 to 90. And I believe that's because the oil is not heated up yet, and the viscosity, it has a thicker viscosity, the oil, and it's kind of sticky, and it needs time to warm up through the engine warm-up cycle to thin out the oil. And as the engine oil thins out, and when it warms up, it produces lower pressure. Like right now, the engine's already warmed up, and this is a restart. Now when I drop the idle down, you'll see the number go down. This is about the normal operating reading that I'm getting from a warmed up running engine. Now my idle may be a little bit lower than factory setting, but I think I'm getting between 20, around 18 pounds to up to 30 pounds at idle, or 18 to 25, I don't know exactly. I'm getting a lot of different readings, but as the engine speed goes up, while you're driving at 40 miles per hour, 50, you can see that the oil pressure goes up. It only goes down low at idle. I believe the normal pressure reading is about 20 to 35 with basic model automobiles, non-racing applications, because racing applications have high volume, high pressure oil pumps, and they're usually a lot higher, like 80 plus, somewhere in there. But the gauge is working, and it's not perfect, but hey, it works. For $18, how can you complain? Now I did put a inline fuse in the hot wire closest to, about 2 feet away from the gauge itself. It's actually, and that fuse is right next to the firewall in the engine compartment right now. But it's 0.3 volts going to the gauge, because the gauge requires 0.3 volts of electricity max, and that's max voltage to the gauge. 0.3 volts. That's 3/10 of 1 volt. And I got my inline fuse from an old stereo that I haven't used in years, because it's a low voltage inline fuse. I don't even know where you get a low voltage inline fuse under 1 volt these days. But if you can find one, I'd recommend getting one, so you get the proper voltage to your gauge. And I'm sure a lot of them are the same, requirement as far as voltage requirement. But yeah, you know, it works. And we're getting around 20 pounds at idle here, just sitting here at idle, and I know that's normal. And oh, see, the red light popped on. I think when it goes below 20, the red light, that's a warning light saying your oil pressure is below normal. But I'm not worried about that, because on these Isuzus, these old Isuzu PuPs, you know, they have really low oil pressure anyway. So, you know, maybe just keep the idle up. You know, when you're at idle, you know, just put on the pedal when you're idle and just bring the idle up, you know, above 20. You know, if you're worried about it. I'm not worried about it. But I can see this real easily, very easily, in daytime, when it's sunny, when it's cloudy, in the dark, night, day. You know, this is highly visible, and it's really easy on the eyes in the daytime, and I like it because the numbers are very clear, they're large in size, and I can glance at it from a distance just for a fraction of a second, split second, where I don't have to take my eyes off the road, and I know what it reads. And I know a lot of those old gauges, you know, the mechanical style gauges, you know, sometimes you can't read them, you know, because there's no light. Maybe they don't have backlighting, or the light bulbs burn out or something. The numbers are small on the gauge, and they're harder to read because the numbers are smaller. During the daytime, the backlighting sucks, and you can't really, you know, lighting doesn't do you any good in the daytime anyway. But this light is very very bright in the daytime, a lot easier to read, no matter what light conditions that you are experiencing. So yeah, you know, I'm happy with that. That works for me. And now I know I have oil pressure. You know, so I'm driving. You know, I'm operating the vehicle, and you know, I know there's oil pressure. I know there's enough oil pressure, and it'll tell you when you know when there's no oil pressure, your oil pump goes out on you, or you lose an oil line or something. That number is going to drop down to 0, and you'll see that red light, that red dot light come on. And with my peripheral vision, you know, we all have peripheral vision. You can spot that red dot light. You'll spot it when it comes on. You know, it just clicks. It clicks with your eyes and your mind, your brain, and you'll see that number 0 on there, and you know you don't have any oil pressure. With a dummy light, well, a lot of these older vehicles, the dummy light flickers. It flickers real fast. And you know, that could mean that doesn't necessarily mean you have low oil pressure, but most of the time it does. Usually when you're at idle like I am right now, and the idle's too low, it'll flicker. But it could mean other things too. You know, you have a faulty sending unit or something. Could be a lot of things. Bad connection. But to me, this is a lot more. This makes a lot more sense, and I feel much more comfortable driving down the road, long distance, when I can see that I have enough oil pressure going. I'm not worried about. I'm not guessing. In other words, you know, I don't like guessing, and I don't like worrying, not knowing. This way, I know. So that's all I have for you today. If you like this video, you can give me a like, subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. My my next video is going to be putting on that bumper, that 83 Isuzu bumper that I restored recently, and I'm almost finished with it. It's all together and assembled. I just have to like clean it up and paint the metal, the diamond plate metal that I put on it, and seal it up, keep it from rusting. And yeah, almost ready to go on that video, so stay tuned. That's going to be my next video most likely, and we'll see you around the corner. Over and out.